Hey guys, this is Jason Dickerson. We're going to wait just a couple more seconds to see if a few more folks will trickle in, and we'll get started. All right, I think we've got a lot of folks in now. I'm sure a few more folks will trickle in. So this is the first time I've ever had a type of future leaders or engineering leadership academy thing over Zoom. In fact, this is the first time I've ever used Zoom. So interesting enough, we're still on the Skype and Microsoft Teams platforms at CHA, but I want to welcome everybody to Education Solutions that will win work. Erik focuses his attention to serve Pond's 550 employees, actually over 550 employees, by developing comprehensive marketing plans, communication campaigns, capture planning, and client zippering strategies. What brings him the most joy is the opportunity to coach engineers and architects on ways to build lasting client relationships through communications and winning work. Throughout his career, Erik has been giving marketing communications presentations within the AEC industry for organizations such as the Society of Marketing Professional Services, the American Institute of Architects, and of course ACEC. So he's going to speak today, and we're also going to be joined by Don Harris. Don has been working in the engineering consulting industry for over 30 years, mostly in Atlanta. He spent 16 of those years with URS Corp, now AECOM, and he was the area manager for AECOM's operations in Georgia and Alabama. He's currently a senior associate with KCI Technologies, responsible for business development and quality control. His signature projects include Georgia 400, Peachtree Road in Buckhead, and Capitol Avenue for the 1996 Olympics. Clients have included Georgia DOT, South Carolina DOT, Cobb DOT, Gwinnett DOT, Kennesaw State University, along with a multitude of other cities, counties, and community improvement districts. Don is a registered professional engineer in 6 states and has served on the boards of ACEC and the Central Atlanta Progress. So I'm going to kick it off today with Erik and Don, and we do have a chat up that Chandler will filter through towards the end. So make sure you're muted and your video is off, and want to welcome these guys in.
Okay, sorry about that. Could everybody see my screen? Okay, now got it. Do that one. Share. How about now?
There we go, Erik.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Jason, Chandler, and Sully for the opportunity to speak to everybody today. I'd like to say welcome to all of the ACEC future leaders. Congratulations on being selected by your firms and your companies to go through this tremendous and incredible program. I know the people that I know that have gone through it, they just do incredible things in their careers moving forward. So congratulations and thank you for being here. Once again, sorry we can't be together in person with everything the way it is. The good news of it is I get to drink all of this beer all by myself. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, but moving on, probably talk a little bit, a little bit about me. To go on to Jason's introduction, I have 33 years of industry experience. I actually started off in architecture. I also moonlighted for an MEP firm, which was a lot of fun, merging the two worlds together. But throughout my career, I've kind of migrated into the marketing, communications, and presentation space. Throughout my career, I've literally worked on thousands of RFPs, RFQs, SOQs, presentations, and everything that goes along with that. So a lot of experience and a lot of fun, a lot of lessons learned along the way. The one main thing that I do have is for me and my team of marketer and communication professionals, we have one goal, and that is to really help our teams win work and also become lasting, trusted advisors to their clients moving forward. So that's something we're very proud of that we do here, and something I take a lot of joy in. So, but thinking about yourselves and your careers moving forward after going through this whole teaching at ACEC, one of the things I would like to ask if we were in person is, how do you actually measure success? When you think about your career and you think about moving forward, how do you actually measure what you want to do? Some people measure it via profit, being a part of the company, being a part of the business operations of it, becoming more profitable. Obviously, a lot of us have a thirst for work-life balance. How do we balance our lifestyle with our actual work? Some of us learn and work to inspire. How do we inspire other people? How do we inspire people around us? How do we inspire our clients and folks in our companies? And also others look to leave a legacy. How do we build a community? How do we build a city? How do we build roadways that connect us, in our community? However you measure success, and it could be other things other than these four, they all have one thing that's in common. And it's one word that we all kind of shudder when we see, which is sales. So ultimately, everything that we do revolves around sales of some sorts. Whether you're participating in the process or not, or other people are doing it at your firm for you, it is sales that make all of this possible. Now, I do know for a fact that nobody on this call probably went to school for 4 years plus, maybe sat for a PE exam or other exams and said, that's great, I got everything done, now I can go sell. I'm a perfect salesman. That's not always the case. I think when you talk to a lot of business developers and marketing and people who are in the sales realm, we just kind of evolve there. We just kind of migrate towards it. Some people have a knack for it. Some people don't, and that's fine. But one thing that we do need to know and remember is all of us, no matter what we do for our companies, is part of the sales cycle. We're all involved in it, and we all have a hand in it one way or another. So thinking about that, what I've done is I've broken up my time here into two different parts. What I wanted to do is talk about, as a future leader of your company or a current leader, how do you bring more value to your company? And at the same time, how do you enrich your career? How do you become more than what you are today, in the future? Also, the other thing is part two is, which I call is If I Only Knew. I have 5 principles that I have learned in my career that people have told me as I was going through my career, and I totally ignored them. I said, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, now it's my turn to tell you these 5 principles, and we'll see if you pick up on them or you do the same thing I did and just say, whatever, and move on. So the first part is really in thinking about increasing your value, learning more of the soft skills. We're going to talk a little bit about the importance of sales, about positioning and pre-marketing, and becoming an expert. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about some of the bigger categories of these. I had the opportunity of taking a look at Don's presentation. I know he goes into this a lot as well. So I think our 2 talks are going to really complement each other. But then also I'm going to talk about how do you become an expert? Because really what people want to do is they want to work with experts. So really the sales process, when you think about it, it's kind of like a funnel, and a lot of people have probably seen this already, but it does literally take hundreds or thousands of leads to narrow down into prospects, which narrow down into actually customers. And in order to go through this funnel, we do things like we pre-market, we position our companies, ourselves as experts, we learn from the clients, we go through their process, whether it's an RFP or letter proposal, presentations, whatever the case may be. And then you find those lucky few that become customers. And then from there, it's that cultivation of that relationship. Just because you got the first job and you did it pretty good doesn't mean that we are, the client's trusted advisor. So that is where really relationships and touch points and management really take hold. So when you think about the sales process, about 20 years ago or more, this was kind of the process. It was more of a reactive process. So when you look on the left, you have like strategic development, defining who, what, where, and why. And it used to be where you didn't really know a lot of what was going on. And then all of a sudden, kind of in the middle, you hear about a project that's coming out, and you jump into action. Like the blue line goes way up. You jump into action when an RFP comes out. You get your marketers rolled up, you get your business developer going, you write letters, and you put together a proposal, and it gets shortlisted, and then you ramp up even more under your presentation, you know, that you really want to win it. You practice and everything. And then after that, you know, win or lose, you kind of drop off. You know, it just kind of drops off, and you wait for the next one, and you go back to doing engineering or architecture, what have you. Well, obviously those times have changed, and it has really evolved to now, which is something more of like the business development cycle. So as you can see here, if you look at the green, it's more of a graceful curve than just this, you know, ramping up to get things done and quickly. So this is more of a proactive approach to how we do sales. And I know Don will talk about this some more in his conversation, but it's really at that phase one, it's learning more about the clients, learning more about what their wants and what their needs are, what keeps them up at night, asking them about upcoming work, establishing relationships with people, not just learning about a company or a organization and what they want. And then from there, it goes into more of the delivering the go and no-goes and really vetting them out deeper from a company standpoint to see if something we really want to do. And then as we ramp up through the presentations and proposals and such, and then win or lose, the follow-up is you keep in contact with those clients or those prospective clients. Because when you think about it, all of the effort that you have gone through for them to learn about your company and you and your team, it shouldn't go away. You should always be on the forefront of their minds. So that's where the business development aspects come in, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. So thinking about that sales process, that's generally looking more of that proactive than that reactive. Really the question that we should ask ourselves as professionals every day is, how can we enhance that sales process? And I firmly believe no matter where you are in your profession, whether you're a first year right out of school engineer, all the way up to a 30-year plus seasoned professional, we all do play a part in that sales process. So thinking about it, I've come up with a couple of ideas and thoughts to kind of share when you think about the business development side. And one of them is positioning. How do we position ourselves to be more relevant in the AEC space and also to our clients? And one of the big things that we all know about is social media. It is taking hold more and more, no big surprise there. But really, how do you maximize social media to really show who you are and what you can do for a client? One of the things to remember is when you put your name or when your name is put on an RFP, on an organization chart for a project, and that goes out to the committees and stuff who are going to review that package to decide if you get the project or not, they're looking at your social media. They're searching, they're checking your LinkedIn to kind of see what you're all about. So really one of the best things that you could do, no matter where you are in your company, is to make sure your social media is up to date. Make sure your LinkedIn is current. Make sure your summary talks about you as a professional, but also talks about your company and what your company does. Talk about your beliefs, talk about your culture, about what you do. One of the biggest things that you can do with LinkedIn that I find the most powerful is you can actually upload projects on your LinkedIn page that you have done. And what better way to talk to a potential client who's looking at your page for a specific project if they see that actual experience that's on there, and they can read about it and they can hear about the solutions that you and your company have provided. So you can do that. You can even write and upload articles and put them on your specific LinkedIn page. So these are some very powerful tools that you can use. And the great thing about them is you could put them up for a week or two until, the project has been maybe shortlisted, and then you can change them for the next one, or show that it's active, and show that you're always relevant to what is going on, to what your marketing team is putting out for you. So, another thing is also posting, post often, show that you're a part of the industries as well. So moving on, another thing to talk about is building a network. We all know that networks are very important. Relationships are very critical. Some of the things that you could do in a network is you can gain intelligence on upcoming projects or projects that are out there. You can learn about clients. You can learn how they treat AEC professionals, which would be really good. You could build your teams for projects. You can learn about the other skill sets of other firms, of like-minded firms. So you can help your company build teams. Another big thing with them is you can recruit talent. Obviously, you can find out who the best and brightest are. You can talk with them. And when your firms are looking to hire, you can have a hand in that and help out. So building a network is very, very important. And it's going to serve you for your whole career. Another thing about positioning is professional associations, such as ACEC and others. One of the things that I talk about with my team here is don't just join an association, but be active. Volunteer, be a part of it. If you want to grow your career faster, maybe faster than what your company is allowing, grow your career at your association. Climb that ladder. Be on, committees. Be on boards. Be a part of the system that is helping your career advance and your industry advance. So professional associations are very important. Also, what's good about them is when they have their social events, that's where you can practice your elevator pitches. You could talk about how to work a room. You could talk about, how to follow up on leads and such. So you could really work and practice a lot of your business development skills there before you even go to clients. So if you're nervous about business development and such, work in the associations, use it as your training ground before you move forward. Another thing to talk about is zippering. And if we were all together, I would say by show of hands, who knows the concept of zippering? Essentially what zippering is when you have your company, your firm, and you come up to a potential client firm. What you really want to do is the people that you want to meet people that are like-minded and that are on the same path as you are in your client firm, your prospective client firm. And you want to use your relationships to introduce people above you, maybe your supervisors, your leadership, but then also people that work with you, like your accounting group, your marketing group and such. And the goal there is to be so intertwined with that potential client or current client that you actually form a zipper, that the firm and you are linked together with that client. What's really good about that is you can grow your career with clients. We have people in our firm that have been serving the same client for over 20 years, and they have risen from project managers all the way up to CEO in the company with their clients, and the clients have grown with them. So, as we do good work for our client, as you do good work for your contact, you both grow together, and then you become that trusted advisor to them, which is so important. Another great thing about zippering is if anything goes wrong on a project, and what we do as engineers and architects and planners and constructors and everything is, it's very complex and problems will happen. But if you have a great zippered relationship, you find that you will weather them so much better with that client, and you'll probably get repeat work from them in the future if you come out strong. But if you just do one project for one client and it goes bad and you don't have that zippered relationship, it's really hard to respond and rebound from that. Another thing about growing your career is becoming an expert. So how do you become an expert? One of the great ways is just tell people you're an expert. So one of the things that I advise our team here is write articles. Get out there and write some in trade journals, publications, write for ACEC. If your company has an internal or an external magazine, write for them, write position papers for your fellow company engineers and such to show what you do. It's very important to show your expertise. Sometimes people won't always do it for you, so you have to kind of do it yourself, especially in today's competitive environment. So share your expertise. Along with that, with writing, is also speaking. So to be seen as an expert in the industry and to your clients, be a speaker at conferences, put in for some speaking opportunities, some training seminars. A great thing is to present with your clients, present on a project that you've done together. Not only do you look like an expert, but now you're helping your client as well, and clients love that. Another great thing about it is you don't have to jump in and be a speaker for a 2-hour lecture. You could just become a panelist. You could become a moderator. You can kind of build up to putting together, whole segments of speaking. So really, to become an expert, what's really good is write and present. And the final thing about being an expert, the most important thing is learn how to present to win work. I think that's one thing that if you can work with your marketing team, your communications team, your business developers, whether it's 1, 2, 10, 20 people, whoever, but work with them. Let them teach you, if you don't know already, how to present, how to win work. It is the most important thing I believe that you can do in your career in terms of growth. Because people who win work tend to stick around their firms. They tend to stay. So think about that. Most importantly, take the time to practice, to rehearse, videotape yourself, see how you do. Get to a point where you strive to get better, not just to get through it. I think that's one thing I see a lot in our company is when people practice, they practice just enough to get done. Okay, I did my 2 minutes and that's it. But the folks who keep striving to get better and better and better, they're the ones who are actually rising up in the company faster. So really think about, how do you become that expert? Along with that, I'm going to go on to part 2. And I call that If I Only Knew. So this is kind of where I get to show my gray hairs. And I've learned 5 things in my career that I've done that people have told me about, but I've just ignored them. But if I didn't, I probably would be in a much different place now. So what I like to do is kind of just share those with you really quick, and you can take them for what they're worth or not. But the first one is a big one. Don't be afraid of public speaking. If we were together, I would say by a show of hands, how many people have a fear of public speaking? And what you'll find is most people do. 74% of people have some kind of speech anxiety. 5.3 million Americans have a social phobia. Obviously, right now with COVID, it's not helping that at all. But what surprised me the most is public speaking is the greatest fear. People rather die than speak in public. I mean, that's pretty serious. So find something that can get you past that. I did, and I thank myself for it. It just happened a little late in my career. I wish it didn't, but find it out early. Get over that fear and speak in public. Because what you'll find is if you can do that, you will be called on to do so many things for your company. And if you really want to grow within the company, this is one of those key things. The second one is I would really like for you to not do good work. And I'm not saying that just because we're probably from a competitor firm, but doing good work is very detrimental to your career. Really what you want to do is you want to aspire to do great work. So when you wake up every day, when you come to work and you're doing what you do, aspire to greatness. Whenever you start a project, talk to your clients, talk to your supervisors and say, what is it going to take to do a great job on this? What are you looking for? Have them tell you, especially clients. Clients love to hear that when you ask them, what is it really going to take to do a great job on this? What is it going to take to really get a great recommendation from you? If you're in the federal space, to get a great CPARS rating. Find out what those needs are, those expectations, and then exceed them. So that's really a great thing to live by. Another one is define your path. When you think about your path of growth, if you will, we would kind of have these four groupings. You have technical folks, EITs, people who just come into the profession who are learning. You move into supervisory, maybe the manager, directorial, things like that, and then the executive path. So when you think about these groups and where you are and where you want to be and how will you get there. So it's very important to think about every day of your career. But when you think about it, when you come into your technical, when you first start, you have a lot of technical experience. You know everything. You can work CAD, you can work all these different systems, and you produce documents and to exacting detail, and things get built from them. It's extremely exciting. At the same time, when you look at your executives in your company, how many of them can even open CAD anymore? I mean, do you snicker when they can't get PowerPoint to work and things like that? Their technological experience has dwindled over time, but what they built up is people skills. When you think about your path and where you want to go in your career, you really got to think about, I might be the best technical person, the best technical engineer today, but if I want to sit in that executive seat, just knowing that is not enough. So you really got to start developing your people skills as you grow. And when you do that, you'll find that you start moving your career a little more. So think about that, and that's more of a long-term strategy for your career and where you want to be. The fourth thing I always think about is, how can you bring value every day? So you think about your company and you think about the people there and you think about your expertise and really just think about, how can you bring value to your company? How can you enhance client relations? How can you help marketing, maybe with some details on projects? How can you talk to your clients about, their expectations and such? So really think about not just doing what you do, but bringing value to yourself, to your company every day. And the last thing I have is, always be a global thinker. You might have been hired for your prowess of civil engineering or traffic engineering or whatnot, but that's only for today. What you really want to do is you really want to show your company, not your investors, but your executives, your shareholders, if you will, that you're a global thinker. It's very easy to get caught up in your everyday work, detailing, talking to other, consultants, working with the clients with their issues and stuff, but always think bigger. Always show that you're thinking bigger to everybody around you. You're capable of doing so much more than what you're doing today, but you got to make sure people see that. So always show them your future potential. Always be thinking globally. Always think bigger. With that, that's all that I have for today. I know we're gonna have some question and answers after Don speaks, but here's my information. You could take it down, or we could talk more later. I think this is being recorded for future reference. So once again, thank you so much for this time. I really apologize and feel bad that we're not all together doing this, because having those conversations afterwards is what's really beneficial, but hopefully we'll have time to do that in the future. So with that, I guess I'm going to stop sharing and hand this over to Don.
Thanks so much, Erik. All right, Don, you should be coming up here in just a second. Don, are you there?
Chandler, can you hear me?
Yes, there you are.
Hello? Oh. Okay. Can you see my slide?
Give me just 1 second. You should be able to pull it up now.
All right. It says I'm hosting. Can you tell me if you can hear me, and can you tell me if you can see my slide?
We can hear you. We can't see your slides yet. You'll just have to, there should be a button at the bottom of your screen where it says share screen.
I thought I did that.
There we go.
That?
All set.
Okay, I am the guy Erik talked about that can't do CAD, has trouble with PowerPoint. I am that guy. There is no question. But I enjoyed his presentation. I thought it was quite interesting. I was a little concerned when I was putting this together. I says, gosh, could be quite a bit of overlap, and there certainly is some overlap. But to Erik's point, I think they're going to be pretty complementary. I'd be curious in y'all's thoughts. I mean, Erik came at this from much more of a sales background, a marketing background. I came up, I was doing engineering for a long time. I did ops for a long time, and now I really do business development. I would tell you, I still don't think I'm really in sales, but I certainly sell. But anyway, a little bit of, come on. There we go. Again, just a little bit of background on me. Jason pretty much covered that, but I've been in the Atlanta market for over 30 years now. And so the first thing I want to talk about is just the art of business development. And it truly is an art. There is no set way to do it. It just, there was a bunch of guidelines, and you kind of go by the seat of your pants, tempered by experience. So this is our objective, right? You see the guy on the left, hopefully, with all his bells and whistles. He's got all the lines in the water, but the fish are around the guy that's got the right bait. And you can see he's got a whole boatload of fish pulled up into the boat, and he's having a great day. So I won't go through all of this, but this is just kind of a summary slide. I'll go back into some of this again. This kind of goes back to what Erik says. You've got the critical pre-RFP positioning phase. You've got the proposal development, and then you really have the post-RFP. And you can see here where the RFP gets issued and the proposal gets submitted. And those are obviously a couple key milestones. But you want to really market clients, not projects. If you find a good client that has a steady stream of work and you build that relationship, you're going to be a lot better off. So your first goal is to really win the client. And then as you go through, you understand what their needs are, what problems they're trying to solve, and then you can kind of morph that into something, maybe influence the RFP a little bit, where it really kind of plays to your strengths. So again, you see you build relationships through your visits. We talked about professional organizations, some of your outside activities. Number one is performing on existing projects. That's your best marketing tool. If you do good work, it almost always equals more work. So that's really the key here, and this is the recipe for success. So again, I'll just back up. As we move through, you want to understand the client, what his challenges are, what they need, and then work on positioning the firm to the best position possible. A lot of clients you'll find, they don't want to be troubled trying to wade through a bunch of stuff to figure out who maybe is the absolute best. A lot of them will use the easy button. If they're comfortable with you, if you've done good work in the past, you become the easy button, and that should be your goal with that client. So again, the most important part is gathering the intelligence before the RFP. The clients will meet with you. You can showcase some of your talents. You can get them introduced to either yourself, or if there's someone else in the firm, it's going to be the PM. That's important to do. Once they issue the RFP, they put up the cone of silence, and you really can't get into to advance your cause, if you will. You go to a pre-proposal meeting. If anyone has had one that's been valuable, I'd like to talk to you. Those things are never valuable, but you always have to go. Nobody asks a question because you don't want to give away your inside information. So most of the time, you have a room full of people that all sit like deaf mutes, and they never speak a word, never say anything. And again, the client, for the obvious reasons, gives the same information to every firm. So it really becomes important to get out there ahead of the RFP and to advance your cause, to get smarter, to just get as smart as you can. So again, this is kind of, be honest with yourself. Look at where your weaknesses are and how you can mitigate those. And where do those weaknesses line up with some of your competitors' strengths? And how do you mitigate those strengths? And then, you look at the strengths of your firm and your team, and then how does that line up with the weaknesses of the other folks that are going to submit on this? So again, this thing just talks about the sour spot is kind of where your weakness overlaps with their strength and overlaps with the customer needs. And again, the sweet spot is where your strength matches up with your competitor's weakness and lines up with your customer's needs. So teaming. Teaming is one of the keys to success. You need to choose wisely. To me, the key is that they have, the primary key is that they have a good relationship with your client and actually have done good work for them in the past. Again, that really sets the bar. So, and again, there's a lot of different reasons to team. Sometimes you take out the competition. I never like that as a good one. It fills a gap. Maybe they have a certain expertise that you don't have in your firm that is really, it could be a differentiator for your team, something that really speaks to the needs of the client. So it all just depends. There's a whole host of reasons to put certain firms on your team. And again, there's no one size fits all here. So I can't stress enough to take advantage of the time prior to the RFP to really prepare, take full advantage of that, make the most of it, get yourself ready so that when that RFP hits the street, you're ready to go. I thought this was an interesting quote, the differentiation, and I'll just read it because I think it resonates, and it really does, as much as we hate to think it does, it really does speak to the industry a lot. The engineering and construction service industry is serviced by a plethora of similar companies with similar core values and taglines, employing people with similar backgrounds, using strategies with similar dimensions, producing similar designs, and building similar projects for similar prices. We're all pretty similar. So our job is to really find something that sets us apart. And that may be your project manager. It may be the relationship that you have with the client. It may be a special technology that your company has that no one else has so that you can set yourself apart. But that's really the challenge. That is really the challenge. So this is just it's kind of a issues, features, benefits, proof. So issues, what are their concerns and how do you address those? You see, we've just kind of populated this with some examples. I'll let you read those. Features, what are we proposing to address them? How will this feature address the issue? And then what's the proof? This was done for a kind of a CE&I or an inspector job, and safety was one of the primary focuses of the client. So, one of the proofs we have is we worked over 47,000 hours providing these services for GDOT. Our rate was in the top 5% of all providers. So what could be a win theme is our focus translates to results for the Georgia DOT. So again, this kind of says, as you kind of work your way up, you've answered the so what. and you developed your win theme, which is one of the things that you hope sets yourself apart with the rest of the competition. Okay. So these are just some examples of win theme statements. Be careful with these. A lot of times you try to get over the top. You say you're second to none. You're uniquely qualified. Well, what does that really mean? No one else does what you do? Well, odds are somebody else does what you do. Maybe not quite as good as you. Maybe the client doesn't know them as good as you. So there's other things in there. Just be careful with some of the words. And whatever claims you make, if you can prove that or back that up with a proof statement in your proposal, you're well on your way to developing a winning proposal. All right, so the proposal's out. So to Erik's point, let the scrambling begin. So here's the thing about RFPs. They're not very well written, typically. A lot of time they don't explain the customer's needs. You know, a lot of times the client's project manager has written the scope, but they're not really sure what they want. They're usually hastily prepared. Again, a lot of times they'll contain contradictions. They contain provisions that are uninsurable or create significant risk. This is an important one because the client will ask for something that's best in class. Or he'll tell you to ensure that your project meets all standards and criteria. And the problem with that is, and this isn't a legal class, but the problem with that is you insure with an I, you've just negated your errors and omissions insurance. Your insurance company won't insure anything other than standard of care. And that just says we're as good as anybody that has the same experience as us in this instance in the Atlanta metropolitan area. So for better or worse, standard of care says I'm average. Not quite that, but pretty darn close to saying I'm average. So when you say, in fact, place I used to work, the legal department described themselves as the anti-marketing department, because again, those guys would be pretty careful. And you got to be careful too here, because a lot of times your proposal will be incorporated into your contract. So all those great things you said in your proposal that you're going to do, that you can do, and that you're best in class, and that you're going to insure all these things, well, now those are part of your contract. So that could be a problem. So you got to be a little careful with that. A lot of times you'll find that the clients will ask for insurance that's not available. You can't buy it. So again, keep your legal team advised. It's usually a good idea, particularly for some of the more complex RFPs, to have your legal team actually review them for you. So here are the evaluators. A lot of times they'll have no technical expertise. I know Cobb DOT, I think they picked 3 out of DOT and 2 from some other department. So, and my experience has been, especially the guys out of procurement, their job is to eliminate proposers. If they get 12, maybe they throw 5 out on a technicality. And I've had some that will read very little or if any of the proposal. And then some will manipulate the scoring. We actually submitted, it was a program management opportunity. And I forget how many evaluators there were, but one evaluator gave the firm I was with all 1s and 3s, and the winning firm got all 8s and 10s. So again, that was enough to tip the balance. So they made sure that the firm they wanted got in, not necessarily the firm that the group wanted. And there's a lot of clients give very little training to how to read these. So again, it's up to you to make it resonate. Okay. Oops, I'm going backwards, sorry. All right, so making a no-go decision. So here we are, the RFP is out on the street. Here's a list of things that you really need to be able to check all or nearly all of these boxes. You know the client, you understand what their needs are, the risks are acceptable, you have time, your marketing staff and you, if you're the proposal lead, is not totally overwhelmed, and you meet all the minimum requirements they have in the proposal. A lot of times they'll say, you've done 5 of these projects in the last 3 years. Well, if you've only done 4 of them, maybe you shouldn't go. So, and then again, if you don't have these, it would be a no-go. So there's a good chance that you have some of these boxes checked, but maybe not all. A lot of firms will use a scorecard, and you'll tally up a score, and if you exceed a certain number, it's a go. If you don't, well, better luck next time. Maybe do a little better job of getting to know the client. All right, so what makes a proposal great? Number one is you got to be compliant. You got to answer the mail, be sure you respond to the client needs, provide proofs. I've talked about that. And even if you lose, you got to tell a good story so it positions your firm for future work. There certainly have been times when the primary reason we've submitted on a project is we don't expect to win, but we want to tell our story. We want to get in front of that client. We know it's a good client. We just aren't quite ready for whatever opportunity has come out. All right, so if you're going to use, and this is one of my pet peeves, if you're going to use a previous proposal as a template, make sure it was a winner. Don't use one that you didn't win on. I mean, that's kind of the definition of insanity, isn't it? You do the same thing over and over. If it didn't win before, what are the odds it's going to win now? So make sure it's a winner. So you're into the production mode, get your outline, focus on your differentiators. The best thing you can do, again, highlight your challenges, but more importantly, focus on solutions and benefits. So make sure your presentation appeals to a broad audience. Heavy use of graphics, art, tables, headings, call-out boxes, fonts, color, anything to make it a more interesting read. I thought this was kind of interesting. Reviewers tend to read about 10 to 30% of the text, but they'll look at 85 to 90% of your photos, graphics, text boxes. So that's really where you need to focus. If you've got some whiz-bang technology, don't bury it in a paragraph. Put it in a text box. If you can show a graphic, if you can show a photo, you're much more apt to resonate with the selection committee and have a successful proposal. Number one, you got to have a strong sellable PM that they've met, that they know. If they need to be local, then that they're local or willing to become local. Sometimes that's not necessarily required. Ideas that show proven results. Again, it's grounded. You can demonstrate that result. The other thing I would tell you is be careful about loading up your org chart with senior people. That'll never work on the job in all likelihood. The clients tend to see through that. A lot of times they just think you're kind of overloading maybe a fee because you got all these high dollar guys in there. So be sure you think through the org chart and the key task leaders. A lot of firms will use a color team review. These are pretty standard. The pink and the red team are probably the most critical, particularly the pink team, because that's really where you've put your initial thoughts down. You've started to organize your message. You've settled on who's going to be in the org chart and what their position is going to be. So these are really critical times. And as you pull together the team, usually, obviously, it's the PM, it's your marketing professional. There may be some more senior folks within the firm. If you have a major sub on your team, a lot of times they'll participate as well. So, it's just try to get, a good, well-rounded review and have it looked at by multiple people. So, proposals they cannot guarantee you a win, but they can guarantee you a loss. If you've got the best proposal out there, you won't win if it doesn't get read. So, you know, the city of Atlanta is renowned for having a very complicated RFP requirement. And it's not unusual, at least I've had a couple, they've DQ'd the entire, everyone that submitted. I had a job, this was for a municipality, where our proposal, they required a form to be notarized. We had to submit 5 copies of the proposal. One of the copies didn't have the notary seal, and it got DQ'd. A very good practice is to hand deliver your proposal a day early. That takes a lot of the stress out, takes a lot of the last minute emergencies out. One of the things I'll tell you in Augusta, the municipal building is located directly across the street from a train that runs down the middle of 6th Street. If that train is there, you will not get your proposal in on time. So, and nobody knows what that schedule really is. So, again, just be proactive. Get it compliant. Get it in on time, so that you still have a chance to win the job. All right, so you lost. Get a debrief, and I would tell you, you should get a debrief whether you win or lose. Ask for honest feedback. That's sometimes difficult to come by because they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but do the best you can. If you can get other copies of the proposal, do that. If you can get the score sheet, get that. Do a lessons learned internally. Do a little your own debrief internally. Where it went wrong. And I would not recommend protesting. Generally, if you protest, you've guaranteed you won't win, and you usually will guarantee if your protest is successful, you'll guarantee that the winning firm won't win either. So they'll pick somebody different. Just be gracious about it. Get yourself ready for the next project. All right, so that's what I had on kind of putting a proposal together and business development and going through that cycle. So I want to talk just a little bit about communication. I don't know who said this. I thought it was Mark Twain, but I never could find it. But you learn a lot more by listening than by talking. So be a good listener. That would be my #1 piece of advice to you as far as communicating. And rule #2, that's a rule I made up. But I swear to goodness, 90% of all problems are caused by poor communication. People misunderstood. You weren't clear on what you wanted. Maybe you misspoke. But again, good communication is really key. Some thoughts on written communication. Don't use 50 words. You'll tend to get the job done. Spelling and grammar really do matter. I know in Texas, that's one of the criteria they use is how many misspellings you have in your proposal. And don't bury your key words and points. Again, if you can put those in a text box or highlight them in the body of your report, your letter, wherever, that's where you want to be sure those get seen. And then the old adage of write once, check twice really does apply. You really need to check over the work, have others check over it as well. Pay attention to names, titles, and genders. It's personal. It matters. It really matters. And then as you close, list out your action items. Be sure you're clear on what the next steps are, what the follow-ups are, who's responsible for doing those. So again, just be sure you have a strong closing. People, incredibly, we have more communication than ever. People are less willing to read. Here's some do's and don'ts on email etiquette. Be careful with humor. It's usually misunderstood. Doesn't always translate well. Again, you should proofread your message. Don't shoot from the lip. Good rule here is to compose your email, set it aside, put it in your draft box, come back at a later time, reread it when you've cooled off. Odds are you'll make some changes. Be careful with private material. You need to assume at some point the unintended recipient's going to get your message in an email chain. And be careful with the reply to all. I'm sure we've all seen the email where, I don't know, IT may send something out to the entire company, and then half a dozen or a dozen people reply to all, and everyone gets their inbox overloaded. And be careful with blind copying, because when you blind copy and they hit reply to all, it goes to everybody. And the guy that didn't know that Joe Smith was copied on your email now knows. And you got to assume you had a reason you didn't want them to know you were copying Joe Smith. Good rule here is to forward it instead of B, C, and C. Verbal communication, only 30% of what we hear is retained. Nonverbal is generally body language and tone. It makes up 60 to 90% of our communication. So it's a good idea to pay attention to your nonverbal signals. And then in the office, there's obviously different roles. Your supervisors have one role to play, to give direction, to inspire, to lead. You have team members who, again, try to communicate what they need, address your client's needs, talk collaboratively with their other team members. And then you have presenters that generally, they're looking to deliver a message, and you want them to be articulate and persuasive. Again, just some good ideas here. Nothing too earth-shattering. Focus on the issue, not the person. Be flexible, empathize, that's important. And again, value yourself and your own experience. And stay professional, never lose your cool. If you do, acknowledge it, apologize. Sometimes it happens. I'll give you, I don't have this is not necessarily in here, but I was actually on a conference call today with a client, and we had our entire team on the call, and somebody didn't have their mute button pressed, and the client said something, and just by coincidence, the timing came back from, and I don't even know who it was on the phone, with a very uninterested sure, followed up by, you don't have to be an ass. So that was great. The good news is I think our client knew he was speaking to someone other than her, because that could have been disaster. But be careful, just be careful. An email is the same way. Just be careful what you put in an email, because you're never quite sure where it's going. So here's just a few tips on verbal communication. Be direct, and this is if you're kind of given a presentation. Eye contact, that's pretty easy under this setup. No, but eye contact is very important, even if you're just speaking to somebody, giving directions or getting an update on a project. Consider your contacts. Use varying inflections, varying tones in your voice. It keeps it more interesting. And to Eric's point, practice, 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 practice. I think his number of 74% don't like public speaking is dreadfully low. It's probably closer to 90. But anyway, to his point, it is a gift. It is something that is important for your success. And to communicate. I mean, the best idea in the world is really not worth much if you can't communicate it. Again, just some tips. Don't put your hands in your pocket while you're talking. This is more if you're doing a presentation, but could also be if you're just out talking on the floor. Don't chew anything. You see a lot of the talking heads, particularly in sports, they always have a pen. I never have figured that out. They don't have any paper to write on, but obviously it's theirs just as a crutch. But avoid playing with it. It's distracting. It takes away from your message. And try to remain as normal as possible. So now I got just a couple things on career success, and then we'll wrap up here. To Eric's point, build your network. This is good for winning work. It's good for enhancing your career. Get involved, take a leadership role, serve on boards, serve on committees. It's a good way to showcase yourself. These are just some of the the technical groups out there, but get involved in a technical organization. It'll only help your career, and it's a lot of fun. Learn your trade. Be patient. Don't be afraid of mistakes. Just be gosh darn sure you learn from them. The other thing that's important is there's a lot of disciplines that go into our projects. Figure out how they all fit together. Get out of your box. Get out of your comfort zone. Figure out how, what makes the environmental guys tick when you're doing roadway design and all they are is a thorn in your side. Now, figure out how they fit in with getting a successful project and work with them, collaborate with them. And the other thing I would encourage you to do, we are a business. So learn the financial side of how you manage a project. I mean, really, to be a good project manager, you got to be solid technically. To be a good subject matter expert, you got to be solid technically. So don't downplay. Don't look to get out of that technical side too fast. And then the other big piece of advice I would give you is find a mentor. Create a long-standing relationship with them, and then it'll go a long ways to enhance your career. This doesn't necessarily have to be a coworker. It could be somebody, quite frankly, even at a different firm, maybe that you've worked with in the past. It could be somebody outside of engineering even. There's a lot of great advice that these mentors can give you, but it's really a valuable tool, valuable asset for you to have. So I would encourage you, if you don't have a mentor, and I know I've had several throughout my career. I know I have several engineers that are pretty well advanced in their career that I've mentored over the years. And candidly, it's a lot of fun. It's a good way to have relationships. So career success is not measured by dollars. Just be careful. I don't know if this is true or not. I believe it to be. I've heard it from several sources. But they always say that when of the 50% of people that accept a counteroffer to stay at their current firm, and roughly 50% will make that acceptance, 80% are gone within 12 months. And the reason is money is not what made you start looking for another job. There was something there that didn't set well with you. So be careful about just jumping for more money. Again, you got to be careful too later on down the road. If you've worked for 5 firms in 10 years, firm number 6 is going to take a look and say, well, I guess he's on the 2-year plan. I don't know if I want to invest in that individual and get them trained up and have them learn how we do things, only for them to leave and go somewhere else. So work where you're growing, where you're learning, where you're appreciated. And then, hopefully you're going to do this for a long time. It'd be a good idea to enjoy it along the way. So I'm ready for the questions. My question to Chandler is, when's the virtual bar open up? The first round's on me. I'm ready. But thank you very much. I hope this was informative for you. Sorry we couldn't do it in person. It'd have been a lot more, maybe entertaining, but it is what it is. But thank you all. Chandler, I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate those presentations. And, if I could have figured out the ability to have a virtual bar, I would have. Sounds fantastic right now, but unfortunately, I
saw the one question, do we still get 2 drink tickets?
Don't know how that would work, but there will be drink tickets at the graduation here when we get around to getting graduated. Always, so we're just at the clock on the the only question I see right now is from Jason, who asked you on would BCC set that way if it were to happen. You there? We lost on.
This is Erik. I'm still here. I don't know if Don is still on.
Can everybody hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that, guys. You know, technology, you gotta love it. No, the only question that I had listed so far in the chat was for Don referencing the BCC and how it was set up. James Vincent posted the question. He asked why would it be set up like that?
I don't have an answer to that. I just know a blind carbon copy, which is what BCC stands for. You know, you send a blind carbon copy and the recipients of your email don't see that you sent it to them. But if they hit reply to all, it will go to all recipients. So if you BCC me on a message to Erik and Chandler, and then I hit reply to all, Erik and Chandler will see my name because I've replied to them. So they will become aware that you have BCC'd me. And obviously there was a reason you didn't want Erik and Chandler to know I got your message, but that reason is gone by the wayside because I replied to all for whatever reason. And then, you know, now they know. So the advice I would give you is don't use the blind carbon copy, use the forward button. Send your message to Erik and Chandler and then forward it to me. And I will see what you told them and they won't know that you copied me. I don't make a whole lot of use of that, but every now and again, there's a reason to.
Awesome. So I have another question for you, Don, from Ravi. Do you think the mentee should ask for someone to be a mentor or a mentor should reach out to a potential mentee?
You know, I always say no one looks after you like you. I would take the initiative. If you think someone would be a good mentor, approach them. A lot of companies will have specific mentor-mentee programs, and that's fine too. But again, I would, if you have somebody that you admire, that you respect, that you think have got their act together, I would certainly approach them and say, hey, I would love for you to be my mentor. What do you think?
Awesome. So does anybody else have any other questions? All right. Next question. What will be the main factor to pick a mentor?
I would tell you chemistry. Obviously, they have to be, you have to have an appreciation for them and what they do and the value they bring. And likewise, they have to have an interest in you. So it really is, I would say, chemistry, which probably doesn't answer your question very well, but it's the best I got.
Makes sense. Well, anybody else? Type now or forever hold your peace. Well, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. I think these future leaders got some really good takeaways from your presentations, and I'll be sure to share the presentations as well as a recording of this presentation to everyone. So anybody else, I think we all good to go. Thank you guys again. We really appreciate it and hope everyone stays safe and healthy during this crazy time. Hopefully we can get back to normal sooner than later.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chandler. Thanks, Erik and Don.
Tyler.
Appreciate it.